I've assembled all of the devices I intend to use on the front panel. I've drilled this, well, I've drilled the 4 holes that mount the control board and the 2 holes that mount the switches. I could have continued and drilled these 4, but I realize a lot of people may only have a 3/8 inch hand drill. If you do have a 1/2 inch hand drill, that's fine, you can drill bigger holes, but a lot of times a 1/2 inch drill in plastic will twist and tear the plastic. This is called a mechanic's reamer, not a machinist's reamer. A mechanic's hand reamer. At least that's what I always called it. You can buy them on Banggood for about $3. And if you can get probably a 1/4 inch hole, you can start this reamer and it will enlarge the hole. It's very easy to do in plastic. Now, because the finished hole will be tapered, because of the fact that it's a tapered reamer, I ream the hole from both sides. And what I do is that, in this case, it's the binding posts. I intend to use a assembled binding post, which has about an 11mm boss on each of these mating plastic surfaces. They'll mate like that. The panel will be in this little opening here. And so I ream until I feel this boss fit in the hole. Okay, so I've reamed it, and you can hear the, I'll move that out, it snaps into the hole. So this hole is approximately the right diameter. So there, both holes are accepting the boss. Now these 2 holes accept these adjusting knobs. They can be as big as is comfortably covered by the knob skirt. Since we're not going to use these threads to mount this front. Now we want to make sure that they are big enough, and sure enough everything sort of fits. Now as far as cutting this opening, Volt Log episode 64 shows a close-up view of him cutting this with a rotary tool. Now, I've bunged this up a little bit. It's a little oversized, and you can see that I've nicked the paper there. But that's okay, because this paper will get thrown away. And with my, I try to keep my hands as clean as possible, this front panel will be installed. Now I need to make some round holes in this final front panel. And to do that, I'm going to use a hollow punch, or a paper punch. And you can see stuff comes out here. So, a little opening in the side. And if you want to, you can sharpen them. They sharpen from the outside, which means that the inside is the diameter of the hole. Now, we want the holes to be a little bigger than they need to be, but not so big that they won't be covered by the overhanging plastic or lock washer or whatever. So this one's somewhat bigger. The reason we want the holes to be bigger is because we don't want any combination of holes to lock this thing down when we're trying to line it up. The secret to using one of these punches is not to use a soft block of wood. Now you shouldn't punch on metal, but something very hard. A hockey puck would be excellent. This is a plastic bench block. So I need to do, and this is going to be a little awkward because I don't have a big hole to locate the punch by. So there's one of them. Now, if I've centered this correctly, take this little whisker out of here. There's one here too. This should fall in, and it does fall in, and it's fairly straight. If you end up putting this front panel on the plastic, you can always take a piece of X-Acto knife and trim it out slightly. As you can see, these holes are a little bit bigger than the holes in the plastic. I don't know what this cost. You can buy sets with as many punches as this, or I think this set of punches costs $5. You're not punching metal, not even punching aluminum. You're punching paper. I do have a couple of more templates. This is the rear panel, and according to this template, there's nothing on it. This is a 50mm fan layout, and these are two fused IEC sockets. Now I'm going to use the one that employs bolts, machine screws to fasten it down. The cutout doesn't have to be as accurate. If you use one that snaps in, you've got to get a pretty accurate cutout, or when you pull the IEC connector out, you might work this loose. So why don't I have these down here? Well, I don't know where you might want to mount your fan, or maybe you don't want to mount a fan, and where you want to mount your connector. Or maybe you don't want to mount a connector, so you just ignore this. If you cut this out, say you're going to use this one, I have a horizontal center line. You can lay this on top of this, line the center lines up, the horizontal center line, wherever you want your socket to enter, and then tape it down with a piece of Scotch tape and use it to do the cutout and drill the holes. Same way with this fellow. I have horizontal center lines. You can cut out the template, a little bit oversized so you still have access to these lines. Slide it down wherever you want the fan, position it, tape it. Then it can be used to do all the center punching for the holes. I like a lot of ventilation. I'm paranoid about heat. This is a template for the top. You line this corner up with the edge in the rear, and then you center punch these holes. This will locate a set of ventilation holes over top of the power supply, which is located over these bottom vent holes. So there'll be three rows of holes on top of the case. So you would cut this out, just sort of, and then you would leave these lines. Nothing here matters. Totally optional. I'm just worried about heat. I think we'll have a little less heat build up with this switching power supply than with the cheap Radio Shack transformer that I've used in the past. I've stacked up these templates once I decided where I wanted the IEC connector and the fan. I think it's going to be right here. And I finished the front panel. I think it'll look like that. This is the completed power supply. Hold it up here. I don't know what you may be interested in. The overhead lights are sort of in the way, but that's what we're looking at. I connected these two fans in parallel, so both of them are powered off this 24-volt regulator. We'll see how that works. I have the template on the top. I have not yet drilled the holes. I will do that. There's what the front template and knobs and switches look like. So I will drill the holes, ream the holes to make them smooth. Oh, and put the bail on. Install this bail. And I might add, while we're talking about installing the bail, that I had to offset these power supplies slightly because the handle for the bail needs enough room to go inside the case. Alright, I've published the templates, the back template, and the top template, or at least I will when I get upstairs. So any comments you have, any suggestions, please subscribe, and thank you very much.